All right, so we are live, and looks like we have a few people that have joined us already. Just give it about a minute or two just so that we can have a few more people come in. I always feel like we need some kind of music right in the beginning as we wait.
I know. Oh, I love it. Some of my own team members are here.
Awesome. Yeah, I always find that just after a couple minutes, we see a few more pouring in. So, oh, hello from Dallas. Alicia. Hello, hello. Awesome. Okay, so you know what? There we go. So I'll just get started with a bit of an intro, and then I'm sure that we'll have a couple more people join us throughout. So, good afternoon, everyone. Happy to have everyone here today. We're joining this session today that's about getting working moms to work for you. My name is Miriam Chamberlain, and I'm the event host today. Before we take a dive into the session itself and an introduction on Jess joining us today, I'd just like to highlight a couple key features on the platform, which I'm sure most of you are aware of if you've been here since this morning. But the first one is we'd like to keep it an engaging session. So there's a chat function. So please, feel free to share your thoughts, comments, ideas, anything you'd like to share in the chat function, please do so throughout the event. And then at the end of the session, we will have a Q&A. I'll moderate the Q&A, and if anyone's brave enough and would like to come on stage and engage with Jess, just raise your hand and I will certainly invite you on stage. And we're also encouraging everyone to tweet or post with hashtag SHRC21. I'll drop that into the chat function as well for your reference. And just a reminder that this session is being recorded. So it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our speaker today, who is joining us all the way from Minneapolis. You're in Minneapolis today?
That's right.
Awesome. So this is the lovely Jess Von Bank. Jess is a strong women's advocate, a mother of 3 beautiful girls, and a marketing executive, and now of work global community leader at LeapGen with years of experience bringing innovation to the modern workplace. Jess is also the co-host to a weekly live broadcast, which I personally love to tap into from time to time, called The Now of Work, the Digital Meetup. Jess frequents many opportunities to engage and speak with audience alike and loves tackling topics that are relevant in our workplaces today. With her finger on the pulse, Jess is here to help us identify, from an employer standpoint, the issues and challenges we face and how to fix these cracks in the system, especially when work isn't designed to sometimes fit the narrative. As a mother of 3 and CHRO at an emerging marketing tech company myself, I cannot wait to dive into this topic. Over to you, Jess.
Wow, Miriam, thank you for that introduction. That's better than I could introduce myself. Thank you. And thanks everybody for being in this session. I hope you've all been enjoying the event today. I wasn't on this morning, but I've been part of Social HR Camp and this digital event in the past. And just congrats to Jeff and the entire team for putting on such a fantastic digital event. Everything feels digital these days, right? But the benefit of that is that we get access to so much thought leadership and content and community that we otherwise would have to carve out more time, right, to get access to and investment. So what a great space that we're sharing here together today. When Jeff asked me to participate in this event, I knew it was around creating more diverse, equitable, and inclusive workplaces. So I was already a huge yes. This is a topic I am incredibly passionate about, serving the underrepresented and giving access to those who don't have access or privilege. I think everybody deserves a dignified experience of work. And that means a lot. There's a lot that goes into making that statement. So I was already a huge yes. And I gave Jeff some, lofty abstract for my session about humanizing workforce experience and all of the things we do so well here at LeapGen. And he actually came back and said, can you actually talk about working moms in particular, like specifically working moms? And I said, oh, I get to do my favorite, my sweet spot. So I'm super excited to be here and to be talking about this in particular. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Got a little presentation ready for you today. And hopefully we can get it up and going here. Browser is not permitted to share screen. Miriam, we might have, I might have screwed up by not doing, I know, thank you for telling me that, by not doing a dry run like I should have. Let's see if I can, hang on, give me 1 second. We're gonna troubleshoot live here. See if I can select the tab. Okay, I think we're a go, yes? You're able to see my screen now? Okay, good, perfect, thank you for telling me. Okay, I'm gonna put it into slideshow format. We're gonna start at the beginning. We're doing this like really live. Okay, getting working moms to work for you. Okay, so this is me, and thank you again to Miriam for giving me such a beautiful introduction. I am the head of marketing at LeapGen. I do brand strategy work, not only for us at LeapGen, but also for customers we work with, solution providers who are making workforce solutions to help make work better inside enterprises. I help them with their messaging and their product positioning as well. This picture is me. This is me. Close enough to 1988. I'm just going to say it's close enough. It might be 85 or 86, but close enough to 1988. And I chose that year and this image in particular because the current level of participation by women in the workforce has slid back to the year 1988. I'll say that again. The current level in the year 2021, the current level of participation by women in the workforce has backslid to the year 1988. We've undone years, decades of progress that had been made in terms of women participating in meaningful ways in work they love and work they choose. And we've eradicated some of that progress because of the pandemic, but it's not really because of the pandemic. It's because of a lot of factors that already existed. And I think that part is important to understand. Work was never designed for women. Work was especially not designed for working moms. So the pandemic didn't force these outcomes. The pandemic just exposed warts we already had. I think it's really important to understand that part. Why is this work so important to me? Because I have 3 girls who are currently around the ages I was in the picture you just saw. So we haven't made any progress. The picture you just saw of me and my girls today, we're in the same place we were in 1988 in terms of how and the degree to which women participate in the workforce. That's really unfortunate to me, and I'm sure it feels unfortunate to you too. And this has real impact on business, by the way. And I'll explain some of that when I talk about things employers can do to bring women and working moms in particular back to the workforce, and not just back in meaningful ways, so we can make real contributions and drive real impact inside business. Women, working moms, are currently the most available, diverse group of talent you can access. Everybody's trying to hire people. I actually call bullshit on the labor shortage. There's people. There are lots of people. Let's talk about the 5.4 million women who dropped out of the workforce during the pandemic. There are people available. There's incredible talent available. And women and working moms is currently the most accessible group of diverse talent you can access. So that's why this work is important to me. A little bit about LeapGen, just to give you context for where my voice comes from in this conversation. We're transformation evangelists. We think work can be better when you make work about people, when you design work for people. That requires knowing your workforce better than you've ever known them before. It means reshaping processes, data strategies, technology strategies, reshaping everything with people at the center of your strategy. and with business outcomes that have them in mind. And it also requires kind of rethinking. It's a mindset shift, rethinking the difference between digital and technology. So we work on transformation programs for HR and enterprise customers all around the world. You see a bunch of impressive logos right here, but that's what we do here at LeapGen. I want to dive into the topic at hand today and share with you some statistics that really, really matter, because we can't understand the problem until we understand sort of the heaviness of the problem, I guess. And so here's some facts. Let's just lay bare some straight truths about women and work. So women make up almost half of US workers, 47%. Recently, we all saw this headline and we couldn't stop talking about it. Recently, 1 in 4 working women in North America said they're considering stepping back or downshifting or dropping out of the workforce entirely because of the disproportionate impact of the pandemic on their life and their careers. 1 in 4 women. If you were a working mom, so if you were a woman with school-age children in particular, that was 1 in 3. Even more said, I can't do it anymore. They threw in the pandemic towel or are considering doing that. I said this already, moms are one of the largest segments of diverse talent in today's workforce. We're available because 5.4 million women dropped out of the labor force during the pandemic. Women and working moms are available, but you have to attract them differently than you did before. Working moms in particular make up 1/3 of the female workforce. So the female workforce in 2020, 1/3 of them are working moms. And then another stat, just for context, 86% of women in the US were mothers by the time they were 44 years old. Okay, so what happened? Those are stats about working women and working moms. What happened? Again, this already existed. This was not, sort of created out of thin air by the pandemic. None of this happened during the pandemic. These were warts we already had when it came to work and workforce experience for women. We call it the Motherhood Penalty. And these are straight facts. I have every single one of these sources cited in my speaker notes. I'm happy to give you an appendix. It's painful, the list of sources and research that exist to show what happens when women choose to have a family at the same time they have a career. 69% of working Americans say working moms are more likely to be passed up for a new job than somebody else. 60% said career opportunities are even given to someone less qualified than to a mom who might be more skilled. Someone less qualified is picked over a working mom. 72% of both working moms and dads, both women and men, moms and dads, 72% of them say, yep, women are penalized in their careers when they start a family and men are not. Mothers are 40% more likely than fathers to say that childcare issues hurt their career. So when you hear the motherhood penalty, that's what we're talking about. Women are less likely to work when their children are young than when the kids get older. 43% of women workers, this one is a painful one. 43% of women workers had at least 1 year with no earnings whatsoever. Read that again. 43% of women workers give up a full year of pay. For those women, this is an exponential build here. That stat hurts bad enough. Let's build. For those women who took a year off from work, so they had at least 1 year with no earnings, their annual earnings from then on are 39% lower. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Okay, 23% of working moms say they've turned down a promotion because they can't balance work and parenting responsibilities. They don't think they can take on any more. 17% have been passed over for an assignment, 16% passed over for promotion. That's the motherhood penalty. Okay, so those are some stats. Now let's talk about the pandemic. All of that stuff already existed. It already existed. That was already happening. When I say work isn't designed for women, it's because of all of those inequities, all of those, sort of disproportionate experiences that women have when it comes to work that don't apply to you if you're not a woman and if you're not a mother. Then the pandemic comes, right? And we just we laid bare all of the issues we already had. The pandemic hit women the hardest. Period. End of story. Statement of fact. Pandemic hit women the hardest. 5.4 million women lost their jobs during the pandemic. 2.1 million women of those women left the labor market entirely. They didn't just change jobs, they dropped out of the labor market entirely. And 2 in 5 of those may never return. Of the quits, let's talk about the people who left their job or the workforce entirely. This is a really interesting, I want to talk about the Great Resignation. I think we're painting too broad brush strokes over this Great Resignation issue. There certainly is the category of people we all can't stop talking about. Those people who are saying, I want more, I want something better, this is no longer good enough for me. That's one category of quits, of the Great Resignation we're seeing. The people who are making a choice between something that's okay and something that's even better, the grass is greener. Those tend to be skilled and knowledge workers, likely people who kept their jobs and stayed put during the pandemic, and they waited to quit. They waited to choose something better when it felt safer to do so. This is really important to understand. That's a thing of privilege. That's a thing of privilege to be able to quit, to have the choice to quit and choose something better for yourself. That's a thing of privilege. Then there's the category of people who are making a choice between poor, toxic work culture, lack of management, lack of support, kind of a shitty job, shitty environment sort of thing, and something that was even worse, which is school isn't available. There's no childcare available. I've had to quarantine my kids 3 times in the last 2 months. I literally, I have bills to pay, but I literally cannot. And so I have to make a choice between a bad situation and a worse situation. That's also happening. And I think it's really important to point out that there are 2 categories of talent who are making choices in what we're calling the Great Resignation. And I think when I talk about working moms, I think we're falling into both camps. And so I'm going to share some things that employers can do to address both camps. It's really important if you're trying to attract women back into the workforce, you understand what they're making their decisions on. Do they have a lot of choice and they have the privilege of making no choice at all, choosing no employment at all if they have another income in their household, for example? Or do they have to make hard decisions based on real factors like availability of childcare or your ability to support them with flexible schedules or a flexible environment because they might have childcare issues at home? Okay, so because of the way I'm sharing, I can't see. I'm going to switch back over to the chat. I have to flip my screen on another tab. So I'm going to slip back over to the chat. Hi, Nikki. I'm so glad you're in here. I know I'm not looking at both tabs right now. Yes, privileged choice. Okay, so you're tracking with me. Everybody's tracking with me. All right, so clearly the talent war has changed. I hope that's enough of a setup to say everything changed, right? And it's important to understand what exactly changed and how and why, because you can't attract people, talent, with a peanut butter spread. We're all different. I hope that's obvious. We're all different. What matters to us is different. What we value is different. How we were impacted by the pandemic likely needs to be addressed in order for us to come back in a more positive, contributing way. So your approach needs to be bespoke to who you're trying to attract. And for women and working moms, you need to address the things that broke for us or that were always broken for us. So time to act. 15 ways. I told Miriam, so I was putting this list together. I talk about this a lot. I talk about inclusion. I talk about recruiting diverse talent. I talk about things like this quite a bit. And I sort of felt like, I can totally come in and riff on this. No, I actually wanted to make this actionable. I wanted to be very specific and very prescriptive. And so I started making a list. I love lists. And it took me literally 5 minutes to come up with 15 things. There's no shortage of ways that we can show up for women. There's no shortage of ways that employers can make redress, fix stuff that's broken. There's no shortage of ideas. The list is long. I came up with 15 things in 5 minutes. I challenge every employer out there to pick one. Some of these are hard. I mean, they're hard, but they're worth it and they're necessary. Some are so easy. And I can't believe you're not already doing them. I can't believe we're all not already doing some of these things. So I would challenge you to just start somewhere, right? Okay, let's talk about paid leave. One of the issues affecting working parents and working moms in particular, because they tend to take on childcare burden more than their male counterparts, than their co-parents, is the issue of leave. I didn't discuss childcare here because it feels like a little bit of a bigger issue, and many of you are in Canada, we're in the US. The issues hit us differently depending on governmental support and policies and that kind of thing. But paid leave is employer specific. This is employer specific. I'd love it to be a governmental requirement and program, and Congress is working on that and probably needs to work a little harder on it. But when you pay for parental leave, you increase the chances of that parent coming back, period. And that's whether or not it is the woman and the child bearer, or whether it is another co-parent or caregiver in the situation. Whoever the caregiver is, when you allow them to step away for parental leave or for caregiving leave and pay them for that time, you increase their chances of coming back by 20% in the first year, 50% in the next 5 years. That's one thing we can all do. Pay equity, oh my gosh. I could talk all day long about pay equity. All I will say is, back to that motherhood penalty, women's earnings drop after they have a child, after they have their first child in particular. There's lots of data. Again, I've got all the sources cited. So if anybody wants to truly geek out on some of this research, women's earnings drop after having a child, and we never make up that ground. There are lots and lots of reasons pay inequity exists. And when I say pay equity, remember, it's not just gender pay equity. You have to be willing to cut the data a little bit deeper. There's lots of reasons pay inequity exists. The inequity between women and men is the big one we all think about so much. That inequity gets bigger, gets more painful if you're a woman of color. So please be willing to cut the data deeper than you probably think you need to truly understand this inequity issue. And it's a big topic. And so all I'm going to say about it is, back to the motherhood penalty, make sure this isn't the case when women have children. They tend to step out of the workforce. They tend to step back from promotion and projects, and they tend to suffer on the pay side. Be mindful of this and make sure that all of the other things aren't true, but especially this one. Make sure and again, that's part of what paid leave can help you do. Protect jobs and protect income when women step away for caregiving responsibilities. I hate going so fast past that one because it's such a big one. Address burnout. What can employers do to bring working moms back to the workforce? The number one demographic who suffered the most from burnout, poor mental health, overall decline in well-being, everybody did. Trust me, everybody suffered during the pandemic. But the group that suffered the most were working moms with school-age children. Straight fact. It's a fact. So if you want to get a burned out demographic back into a working environment where they can thrive and be successful and make positive contribution, you've got to address their burnout. And there's lots of ways you can do that. And I'll get to, sort of flexible work modeling and that kind of thing. But make sure that women aren't suffering from the double shift, showing up at work. And when I say at work, I don't mean in a physical workplace, but just showing up on screen, producing work, being a contributing member of the work culture, and then stepping away and doing that double shift where they're also, minding all of the home front and child rearing and all of the other things. And they never truly get a break to refill and refuel and come back fresh and invigorated. Find ways to create space for people to do self-care and to take care of themselves. And that goes for everybody, by the way, that goes for your entire workforce. But because working women and moms in particular, and those with school-aged children in particular were the most affected, please don't skip this one. This is a really important one. I found some really interesting data that shows of all people in the organization, of all leaders in an organization, women are doing the best work and the most work when it comes to supporting the workforce's well-being, mental health, and showing advancement on DEI goals. Supporting the workforce through general well-being and mental health, and advancing progress on DEI. Women are making the most impact in that area. And I think the reason for that is a little bit obvious. We benefit from that work. So we're doing the work. So recognize, celebrate, reward, and make space for women to do that work. They're making incredible progress, and that has tangible impact and value on the business. So let's make space for the women who are doing that. Another one that should go without saying, please create an environment. I mean, belonging is a huge issue when it comes to work, and I think it becomes even more of an issue in the digital culture and environment that many of us, if we work in professional knowledge worker type of jobs, everything's digital. You have to rethink everything. And so if you've done the work, the culture work to create positive, healthy, thriving cultures where everybody feels they can show up authentically as themselves and feel a sense of belonging, you have to redo that work in a digital culture and a digital environment. And you have to think about everybody who is in your workforce. Don't assume everybody has the same experience of work that you do. And when you survey the workforce or when you do listening and sentiment analysis, dig into the data to make sure that to make sure you're hearing and understanding the experience of every demographic in your workforce. We did research at LeapGen. We surveyed almost 3,000 workers who actively participating in the workforce as of July 2021. And more women than men, said they did not feel work was a safe place to voice concerns. So let me say it the other way. More men felt like they could speak up if they had concerns. That wasn't as true for women. So again, do the culture work. Make sure all women feel valued, feel a sense of belonging, and feel like they can speak up if they have concerns. And even want to self-advocate for themselves, which I'm a big proponent of. Another one, obviously, we've got to reduce bias in hiring and in our performance review practices. It exists. I'm not going to do a deep dive on all of these because these are big topics. But if you're bringing women, if you're attracting a demographic you might not have been successful attracting in the past, or you'd like to do a better job of attracting diverse talent, you've got to address bias that exists. I promise it does, in the way you screen, interview, collect interview feedback, make decisions, and even make offer decisions. You've got to sort of analyze every step of your process to make sure you're creating a process where women can fully show up, can fully represent what they bring to the table, and you are able to evaluate them from a position of just analysis. And that goes for managing and reviewing performance as well. Track representation and hiring and promotion outcomes more fully. And by this, I mean, don't just say, are we doing better when it comes to women? Do we have more representation by women? You've got to cut the data deeper. Working moms are a demographic in and of themselves. Women of color do not make the same progress as women. So when you say, oh, look at, we're achieving some of our diversity goals, we're hiring and promoting more women, please add of color, because it's not going to be as true. Women of color do not make the same progress at the same rate as women do, and neither do working moms. So when you add criteria, right, you can't just say women. That's a great goal to have, to make progress for women, but you have to say working moms, and you have to say women of color, and you have to sort of keep digging into that demographic to make sure that you're making progress for everyone. Same thing with equitable promotion. You can't just look at hiring practices. You can't just look at how you're evaluating performance. You have to make sure that you're making space and encouraging and celebrating equitable promotion. I can't remember the stat off the top of my head. There's a concept called the broken first rung. The greatest drop-off occurs from individual contributor to first promotion to management. After that, we do a better job of making sure that we're advancing women up the ladder. It's that first step from individual contributor to the first management position. It's the broken first rung. There's something like 75% drop off at that step. Support critical work around employee well-being and DEI. I kind of mentioned this one already. People suffered during the pandemic. Some of us suffered more than others. Really be mindful about how you're bringing people back. Don't just make promises, show proof of promises. Show proof in everyday behaviors and leadership behavior in what you're willing to do to better support people. People who did, if I fell out of the workforce because it didn't work for me, I'm hoping something has changed or something will change. And I'm sure other women like me, other working moms that want to be part of that change. So support work that's happening around taking better care of people, so we're not burning them out, we're not driving them out of the workforce, and so that our promises aren't just promises, they're true. The allyship gap. I know I'm moving a little bit fast here, but there's like so much good stuff that everybody can do, and I really think this is change that we can make in our lifetimes. I really do. It's why I was put on this planet, to see some of this change happen before my girls, before my 3 daughters and all of your daughters, before the next generation. I hope the next generation doesn't have to have some of these conversations. The allyship gap. I'd be curious to know if anybody knows what this is. Speaking of lip service, so there's some data that says, especially over in 2020, when race and racial injustice and racial violence all took, headlines and center stage, and we all made big promises around doing a better job of addressing racial inequity and creating more diverse and inclusive environments at work and everywhere elsewhere. More people made more promises. So we had this surge in allyship. I'm an ally, I'm showing my support, I stand with you, I stand behind you. We put all these corporate promises on our website and in our employer brands. But when you ask the recipients of allyship, the benefactors and beneficiaries of that allyship, whether they felt the difference, there's a huge gap. Women of color, people of color, working moms, everybody who needs allyship. We do need allyship. They don't feel the effect. They don't feel the difference as much as people are saying they're standing behind us. And so we have to close that allyship gap. We have to show more proof of the promises we're making, and we have to show it in sort of like our daily behaviors and changes in actions and policies. To that end, secure senior level sponsorship. Absolutely. I should actually make this number 1. If leaders show something is important, it becomes important. I don't think I have to say any more about that. Jason Averbook, some of you know him. He's the CEO and co-founder of LeapGen. I work closely with him here at LeapGen. He's doing another webinar right now. I'm doing this one He came in and joked with me a few minutes before he got started, we both got started, and said, we should switch. I'll do your topic, you do mine. I said, I would love you to do this topic. Can you imagine if Jason, and you know what, I should go challenge him to do it. If Jason Averbook delivered this session on doing a better job of hiring and supporting working moms in the workforce, I hate to say it, it might go further than me saying it. Of course I'm saying it, I'm one of us. Of course I want this. But if everybody says, this is important, we're doing this work, then it becomes more important. Demonstrate accountability. This goes to reporting. Don't just say you're making progress. Make sure you're making progress. Open the books. Be transparent. If you have goals around closing pay gaps or promoting more women or hiring more women, demonstrate accountability by showing. Run the reports, open the books, show the data, be transparent about where you're making progress and where you're not, and how you're going to fix that. And driving awareness. It's what we're doing right now. Have these conversations. Do the work to find the data, to tell the story of what's happening. Start by just telling the truth. Here is what's happening, and now here's what we can do about it. We have to do much, much more of that. And then define and support flexible work. Don't just say you show flexible policies. You can adjust your work hours, or you can work from home forever if that works for you. You have to be very specific about this, because there's this phenomenon that happens when a group is underrepresented and they do self-advocate, or they even secure allyship and sponsorship. Even when those things are true, when a person speaks up and says, I need this, I require this in order to be successful or effective, there's still this thing where this fear of judgment or retribution, or will I be considered less committed to my job, or less devoted, or less capable, less able to do this if I ask for accommodation? That still happens. And so we have to, as employers and leaders, we have to demonstrate what that flexibility looks like, and then show that show it in practice, literally show it in practice, so it becomes okay. We give permission to work this way. It's a lot of pressure to put on someone to constantly self-advocate for themselves, or to constantly raise their hand and proactively ask for accommodation and flexibility. Take a little pressure off of those groups of people by meeting them where they are and actively demonstrating support. I'll go back to Miriam here. We'll take some questions, and I'd love to chat with her about some of this. Those are 15 things. I'm telling you, the list is long, and I didn't say that it would all be easy. I'm saying it's worth it. I'm saying we need to do this work. We believe this at LeapGen. We call it our whole person approach. You have to support the whole person. You have to let them show up fully, authentically, be human, be real, and design work for them. We just peeled off and talked about working moms, but this goes for everybody, honestly, in your workforce. Thank you, Nikki, for that comment. Jeff, let's see, do I stop sharing? I'm going to stop sharing and come back on with Miriam. Miriam, what do you think about that? Did that hit home?
Oh, Jess, that was so powerful, and I loved it. I loved all of it, and I love that there was, some actionable items there for us to really think about. And I know that we could probably take each and every one of them and build them out into other sessions and topics, because there's so much to talk about. But I loved the thought. Where my mind went immediately, and I'm a mom of 3 kids, and I've worked all throughout the pandemic as well, and is that sense of acknowledgement, is to say, I see you, I know you're here. And I found that it took me back to right in the beginning of the pandemic, where I was like, what is happening, and how do I take care of all these people, and how do I take care of my family, and what do I do? And will sound like the most basic thing, but we wanted to really showcase to our team that we hear you, and we see that there's working moms out there that are trying to make it work with their kids at home. So we would send out this weekly newsletter, And in the newsletter, instead of talking about all the stats and the numbers and all the things that we were doing well as a company or things that we're focused on, we stripped it down and we made it about the kids. So we actually put a coloring book in the newsletter. And it was really a symbolism to say, here, spend some time with your kids during the workday. And then it ties into the flexibility of hours. So we had to rethink how we were going to work with our teams, because we needed to offer the flexibility for them to be home during the day to work with their kids. So anyways, that's a very small example, but it brought me right back to that first initial moment of what do we do and how do we acknowledge that this is happening? So needless to say, it went a long way. There was a lot of, working moms that came forward and said, thank you. I need this job and I need to kind of continue supporting my family. And we were there to support them. So I would love to hear other people's stories, or perhaps any questions for Jess at this time. I know we only have about 5 minutes before we move on to the next session, but if there's any questions, happy to, bring you on stage, or if you'd like to share your story. Anyone? We have nothing yet.
Yeah, I love that example too, Miriam. And when I read, I produce a lot of content. I write a lot, I speak a lot, I support other speakers at LeapGen with content. And so I feel like I read all the time about obviously we're all reading and talking about the Great Resignation, but it's more than that. Sort of people are leaving. Where are they going? Are they leaving and not working? And so are they not, they're not going to return to the workforce? Like, that many people can afford not to work. Like, something has just never kind of sat right with me about this. And as I dug a little bit deeper on, like, let's debunk this, this Great Resignation. Is it happening? Yes. Is it a talent shortage? I'm not sure. Is it a talent crisis? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And so it's important. And I challenge everyone not to take headlines at face value. There's more to the story, whatever it is. In this case, there's definitely more to the story. 5.4 million women left the workforce during the pandemic. Why? And there's a lot of reasons why. If you want to hire 5.4 million women back into the workforce, you better have an answer to those whys. And so, again, I'm happy to share this deck and some of the resources, but I would encourage every talent leader, for sure, if you're running recruiting and sourcing teams, or if you run talent or your people and culture organization inside of your business, have this conversation. Ask me to speak for you. I will come and do this for your HR leadership team or your people and culture team. And do this understand your workforce better than you've ever understood it before. And do it for the groups that you believe, because it's probably true, that you believe were disproportionately impacted. And really dig into some of this, because this isn't just about hiring people, it's about keeping them in your organization in a way that they're happy and they can thrive and they can drive business results. The Mom Project is a fantastic resource, and they have a ton of research out there. If you don't know of them, please go find them. They're called the Mom Project, and they have really incredible, they tell a full ROI story. Having more women and working moms in your workforce drives better business results in lots of ways. So go get it. The data's out there for you. Ask people to help you dig into it. And I hope you're willing to do the work.
So good. Thank you, Jess. We just have, we have about a minute and a half. Rachel has a question. She'd like to come on stage. I'm just going to hand over the mic. Rachel?
Hello. I think this talk is fabulous. At my previous job, I was a coach manager for a health coach company. And during the pandemic, I had a team of 15 underneath me, and 2 of them were mothers. And the company, we worked to provide them with laptops because their children needed to use the computer for work. So I thought that was really special that we did that. But I did end up having one that got so burned out that, we talked, and she ended up leaving for her own mental health and physical health. So I think it's just something that we, like you said, we need to take that whole person into account. I just got done helping someone go straight a book about this topic of empathy in the workplace. And she was saying that can't wear our mom hat, our work hat, all these hats. We wear all the hats all the time. And that we need as employers to start recognizing that we all wear all the hats all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it shouldn't have to be a choice. When I mean, push came to shove during the pandemic, as we know, and a lot of people did feel forced to choose, but that shouldn't be a true statement that I have to choose between my family and my career. And what if I can't afford to make that choice? What if I'm the sole income provider in my household and I need to pay the bills, and pandemic benefits aren't going to cut it? And so what? Then I literally suffer mentally, physically. Like we're doing real harm to people when we don't create environments where they can be healthy and thrive. And access to income is a real thing. I mean, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I need all my needs met. This is not a sense of entitlement. This is being human. We're talking about humanity here. I need all my needs met. And employers carry that responsibility.
Absolutely. Jess, we would love to carry on the conversation. It's been such a great session. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Rachel, thank you so much for coming on stage.
Thank you. This was fabulous.
Sharing. And thank you everyone for participating today. So we have a couple hours left of the session. So I hope to see you at the next one. That's going to be starting in about 5 minutes. And Jess, thanks again. Everyone have a good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.